This summer, our show, The Source, has made a move from talking about the news to trying to do something about the news. For example, remember when the city of Nanaimo passed an illegal motion banning Christians from using the local convention center?
We don't want to be associated with organizations that promote homophobia or other expressions of hate.
We will not accept acts of hate, and it's even within our Charter of Rights and Freedoms as well that hate speech is not permitted.
What I would call a very strong, unbelievable Christian belief. I find this almost to be a criminal point of view in this day and age.
We reported a lot on that story, but we went beyond just being passive observers. We decided to do something about it. And by we, I mean not just me, but so many of you. You sent hundreds of emails and phone calls to the city councillors demanding that they obey our Constitution and respect freedom of religion and repeal their ban on Christians. You signed a major petition. But we went one step further because politicians are used to emails and they often ignore petitions. So you chipped in and we commissioned a professional, independent public opinion poll showing that most Nanaimoites were opposed to this ban. But even that didn't cause the city council to change their mind. So then we did something that really got their attention. You chipped in and we hired a civil liberties lawyer, John Carpay, to sue the city of Nanaimo. It was a last resort. Obviously, we didn't want to do it, but they were breaking the law and someone had to fight back. Well, within a week of hiring John, the city council totally capitulated. The mayor went from digging in his heels to apologizing quicker than you could say Nanaimo bar.
That we're in the position we're in is extremely unfortunate, and as I say, I do apologize for that, and I will be making that apology at the public meeting of council.
Well, their city council not only apologized and rescinded their illegal motion, but they paid compensation to the conference they had wrongfully canceled. And this was all done by you, by grassroots Canadians. That's what I mean by the difference between just reporting on a problem and actually doing something about that problem. Now, we went back to Nanaimo to have a freedom barbecue to celebrate our grassroots effort. And despite the rain, 800 Nanaimoites came out to join us. That's how big our grassroots army was just in Nanaimo. Even the contrite mayor put in an appearance and actually served hamburgers for a bit. A few weeks later, we did it again in Calgary. This time, a mob of pro-Hamas protesters turned into a vicious, violent riot, attacking a handful of Jews on the street right outside City Hall, sending a half dozen Jews to the hospital, and the police didn't even do anything about it. And the mayor sure didn't care. He was, he didn't want to upset his voter base. Well, we cared. You cared. We raised money to hire a lawyer for the victims, to help them press their rights with the city's police and prosecutors, to make sure the victims weren't going to be swept under the carpet. And then we organized a pro-Israel, pro-Canada rally on exactly the same place on the steps of Calgary City Hall. It was a statement that pro-Hamas thugs don't control downtown Calgary, and it was right outside the mayor's office, a reminder to him that his job was to uphold the rule of law for all citizens, not just his buddies. 900 Calgarians showed up for the rally. And of course, we started by singing "O Canada." That's what we do. Even weeks after the riots, though, police hadn't arrested the rioters, even though many of them were caught on videotape. So we did something again. We set up a website called Riot Stoppers, modeled after Crime Stoppers. We had photos and video clips of the suspects, and we, and by that I mean you, chipped in the money to offer a $500 reward for each suspect who was identified. And I am pleased to report that we have, in fact, paid out $1,500 and forwarded several names to police, 3 of whom were indeed arrested and charged shortly after we sent in the names. Do you see a theme here? Of course you do. It's about doing stuff, not just talking about stuff, but it's about doing things in real life with real people, thousands of real people. Just 2 weeks ago, we joined another civil liberties fight. We saw a Christian pastor being charged by police for not having a permit to preach at Yonge and Dundas Square in Toronto. He couldn't afford a lawyer to fight the charges, so you helped raise the money for a great freedom of speech lawyer for him. We raised the dough in less than a week. I'd even put into this category the crowdfunding that we've been doing, raising money in $20 and $50 increments to pay for things that we all care about as a community. I mean, for example, like when we raised $10,000 to pay for the rights for the important movie called The Honor Diaries about honor violence in Muslim communities. We simply didn't have the extra 10 grand in the Sun's budget for that, but hundreds of viewers thought it was important enough to do, so we raised the money online in just 2 weeks. We did that with the movie Downwind also. That's a documentary we had here. There's so many examples of this, I don't want to list them all. It would take up the whole show. Over the summer, more than 30,000 individual Canadians have joined these projects. Just stop to think about how big of an army for freedom that is, 30,000 people. So we've decided to get a bit more organized. First of all, we put all these campaigns together on one website called forcanada.ca. Now, it's still a work in progress. We'll be improving the website in the weeks and months ahead, but it's the central website for all of our projects. We've called it For Canada because it's for people who love Canada and want to keep it strong and free. We've registered it as a nonprofit organization. It's not a charity, it's just a nonprofit group of people who want to use modern tools of citizenship like petitions and rallies and community barbecues to fight for things that make Canada great, like free speech or keeping our communities safe from crime. It's where we move from merely talk to doing things. Seriously, 30,000 people have joined. That's amazing. Shows how passionate Canadians are about standing up for our country. I want to tell you one more thing about For Canada before I announce our newest project. I want to distinguish For Canada from other groups in Canada like left-wing groups who take huge checks from U.S. lobbyists like the Rockefeller Brothers Fund or Greenpeace to attack Canadian jobs. We're completely different from that, but I want to make that official. So we have 5 rules that you can read right on our website. We take no foreign money, no government money, no corporate money, no union money. Just support from grassroots Canadians. And by the way, no individual donation can be more than $250. Now, this obviously limits what we can do. Unlike the David Suzuki Foundation, for example, that takes more than $1 million a year from foreign lobbyists, including from foreign governments to attack Canadian jobs, we are 100% Canadian and all real people. That's why our logo is a moose. It just doesn't get any more Canadian than that, does it? Okay, now you sort of already knew all about this. We've done a lot of shows about For Canada, even if we didn't use that name to describe our whole effort. But I want to start a new project, totally grassroots, totally crowdfunded, totally Canadian. Because while I love the projects we've done so far, lots of free speech stuff, freedom of religion stuff, you know that one of my favorite issues is jobs for Canadians in the responsible development of Canada's natural resource. I mean, you know this. I've been thinking about the subject for years, and I've even written 2 books about it. 4 years ago, I published Ethical Oil, the case for Canada's oil sands. My argument was simple, that until we invent some fantasy fuel of the future like the lithium crystals, we're gonna need oil and gas. So it comes down to where you want to buy your oil and gas from. Conflict energy from OPEC countries and Russia, or ethical oil from Canada's oil sands. It all burns the same in your car's gas tank. It's just that Canadian ethical oil doesn't fund Muslim terrorism or Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And this spring, I published a new book called Groundswell, the case for fracking. I made similar arguments about shale gas. That's not just in Alberta, but many other provinces too, including Quebec and the Atlantic provinces, and of course in many countries around the world like Poland and Ukraine that would love to be free of Russian conflict gas bought from Vladimir Putin. So you know I love oil and gas and mining and pipelines and things like that because they're great jobs for real Canadian families. But I also love that stuff because I don't want us to keep subsidizing our enemies like OPEC and Russia. But here's the thing, as I've shown you a dozen times, professional international environmental lobbyists have targeted Canada to shut down our energy sector, groups like Greenpeace. They never protest against oil from Saudi Arabia or Iran, just our Canadian oil. Isn't that funny? It's not really a surprise. Here, listen to the Secretary General of NATO.
Russia, as part of their sophisticated information and disinformation operations, engage actively with so-called non-governmental organizations, environmental organizations working against shale gas, obviously, to maintain European dependence on imported Russian gas. That's my interpretation.
So the NATO boss says he has reports that Vladimir Putin, the former KGB agent who's now the boss of Russia, has corrupted Western environmental groups, has infiltrated them to whip up anti-fracking sentiment to help keep Europe dependent on Russia's conflict gas. Now, many environmental extremists are just uninformed or misguided, but there is no doubt that the leadership of the big environmental lobby groups have made a strategic decision only to attack Canadian oil, not OPEC oil, not Russian oil, because that's what they're funded to do. There are so many of these foreign-funded anti-Canadian groups operating in Canada, literally dozens of groups, probably 1,000 paid activists all combined. all on the foreign payroll to a degree, all taking big corporate or union money to attack Canadian jobs. I went to one of their anti-Canada protests in Vancouver this year, and it was a bizarre mix of anti-Canada hysteria and low information professional protesters. All that anti-Canada stuff. And at that anti-pipeline protest, one radical even made her young child hold up a sign that said F-U-C-K Enbridge. Seriously, these folks are outside the mainstream. They are nuts. So here's my plan. Let's do a For Canada event like we've done in Nanaimo or Calgary. Let's do one right in Vancouver, right in the heart of the city. We've done a huge event on Vancouver Island. Well, let's do one in Vancouver itself, not just anywhere. How about right in the heart of the city, right near the port? It's Canada's biggest port, a source of tens of thousands of direct jobs in Vancouver, and of course, critical for hundreds of thousands of other Canadian jobs. I mean, everything we buy from Asia, everything we sell to Asia, lumber, fish, coal, and hopefully oil and gas too. I want to have a real get-together in a real part of the city, not a fake professional protester screaming swears against companies kind of thing. I want a real get-together of real people, no foreign money, no government money, no union money, no corporate money. Let's have a family barbecue in a beautiful little park right near the port called Crab Park. Have you been there? It's right downtown in Vancouver, 101 East Waterfront Road, right at Main Street. Let's make it family style, like our Nanaimo event, bouncy castles, face painting for kids, a balloon stylist, hot dogs, of course, a couple of short speeches about the importance of industry and jobs and exports, but nothing heavy-duty politically. Just a fun family event for people who are sick of being told no all the time. No oil, no gas, no pipelines, no tankers, no fracking, no mining, no forestry, no aquaculture, no, no, no. Always no. No to jobs. But only no to Canadian jobs, you see. Those Saudi jobs are just fine by these foreign lobbyists. I'm inviting you to join me at noon on Saturday, October 18th. At Crab Park in downtown Vancouver for a family barbecue where we're going to say yes, yes to responsible jobs, yes to real Canadians doing something for Canada. Let's start small. I think we can get 100 people to the barbecue. What do you think? I'll be there, so we need 99 more people. Will you come? Rain or shine, Saturday, October 18th at noon at Vancouver's Crab Park. Hot dogs, salad, tons of kids stuff. We even have a few veggie dogs because it's Vancouver. A way for normal people to start saying yes and to take back that great city and province from the foreign professional protesters. If you support these ideas of responsible oil and gas development in Canada and mining and pipelines and ports and jobs, and if you're sick of being told no by the antis, I hope to see you there. The barbecue is free, but you have to register in advance. You can do that on our website called Yesvancouver.ca. We're planning for 100 people, so please register so I know if you're coming, know how many hot dogs to bring. You can sign up online, and if you want to pitch in to help as a volunteer, Canada style, you can do that too. That's Yesvancouver.ca. Will you join our growing army of 30,000 Canadian activists? I can hardly wait to see you there.